Everyone in the park froze the moment police sirens cut through the calm afternoon. 3 officers marched forward, their voices stern, their expressions cold. But what truly stole everyone's breath was a German shepherd at their side, a fully trained police dog with muscles tense and eyes locked on a single target, an old man. He sat alone on a bench wearing a faded military jacket, the kind only a veteran would still cherish. But the officer shouted, "Don't move." Then came the command nobody expected to hear. "Rex, attack." "Take him down," the lead officer barked. The old man froze. "I don't understand. I haven't done anything wrong." His voice trembled. Gasps echoed across the park. Families froze. Children hid behind their parents. Why would the police target a tired old veteran who could barely stand? But the real shock came a second later. The dog didn't attack. Instead, he ran toward the old man and wrapped his body around him as if protecting someone he loved. The officers whispered in panic. Who was this old man? Why would a trained police dog disobey a direct order? And what secret connected them? The truth would shake the entire department. Stay with us because this story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning sun filtered softly through the canopy of tall oak trees, scattering patches of warm light across the quiet city park. It was a kind of morning that felt untouched by hurry or noise, where the world slowed down just enough for an old man like Harold to breathe without feeling forgotten. He walked with small, steady steps toward his favorite green bench, the one near the fountain where the birds always gathered. His worn military cap sat firmly on his head, the faded American flag stitched on the side, telling a story few ever asked about. Harold wasn't alone today. Nestled against his leg, moving with careful loyalty, was a German shepherd, large, muscular, yet strangely gentle in its movements. The dog kept glancing up at Harold with soft amber eyes, as if constantly checking that the old man was still there, still safe. Harold lowered himself onto the bench with a quiet sigh, his joints protesting the weight of years lived and memories buried. The dog immediately pressed closer, resting its head in Harold's lap with a deep exhale. Harold stroked the dog's fur slowly, thoughtfully, his hand trembling not from weakness, but from a kind of fragile gratitude. "You're a good boy," he whispered. "Don't know where you came from, but I'm glad you found me." He didn't know how else to explain it. The dog had shown up 3 days ago, limping, exhausted, and covered in dirt. At first, Harold assumed it was lost. But when he tried to contact animal control, the dog panicked, pushing itself into him as if terrified of being taken away. There was something in the dog's eyes, something familiar, something wounded that Harold couldn't walk away from. People passing by glanced curiously at the pair. An elderly man with mysterious German shepherd. It was unusual enough to draw quiet stares, but not enough to raise concern. To most, it simply looked like a touching moment, a lonely veteran finding comfort in a loyal companion. But not everything about the morning was peaceful. The dog's ears twitched suddenly, lifting with sharp alertness. He raised his head, staring intensely toward the park entrance. His muscles tightened. A low rumble vibrated in his chest. Quiet, controlled, not aggressive, but unmistakably aware. Harold frowned. "What is it, boy?" The dog didn't look away. His eyes fixed on something approaching, something Harold couldn't see yet. The peaceful park, the gentle breeze, the warmth of the morning, all of it was about to shatter. And neither Harold nor the dog had any idea how drastically their lives were about to change. The German shepherd's low growl deepened as 3 shadows emerged from the park entrance. Their footsteps were heavy, deliberate, cutting through the calm morning like a warning. Harold squinted toward the path, raising a trembling hand to shield his eyes from the sun. That's when he saw them, 3 uniformed police officers walking briskly in his direction. Their expressions were stern, rigid, far too serious for a simple stroll through the park. The lead officer, a broad-shouldered man with a tight jaw, scanned the area as if he were tracking something dangerous. His hand hovered near his holster, ready but not yet drawn. The 2 officers behind him moved in silent formation, eyes locked on the German shepherd sitting protectively at Harold's side. The dog pressed closer, body tense, tail stiff, as if preparing for something Harold couldn't understand. "Easy, boy," Harold murmured, placing a calming hand on the dog's back. "They're just officers. Must be looking for someone." But the dog didn't ease. If anything, he grew more alert. The lead officer slowed to a stop a few feet from the bench. "Sir," he said sharply, "step away from the animal." Harold blinked in confusion. I'm sorry. Step away. That is a trained K-9 unit." The officer continued, his tone clipped with authority. "And it's not supposed to be here. We receive a report of a missing police dog, a dangerous one." Harold stiffened. "Dangerous? This boy? He hasn't harmed anyone. He just wandered up to me 3 days ago." The second officer leaned forward, studying the dog with narrowed eyes. "That's him," he muttered. "Same markings, same collar type. He's the missing unit." Harold looked down. The dog stared straight ahead, not at the officers, but through them, like he recognized them yet wanted nothing to do with them. The lead officer stepped closer. "Sir, you need to move away now. This animal is trained for combat and could become aggressive without warning." Harold gently cupped the dog's face. "He ain't shown me nothing but kindness." "Maybe you got the wrong. Move." The officer snapped, startling him. The dog responded instantly with sharp bark that echoed across the park like a gunshot. His body shielded Harold's legs, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the officers with fierce intensity. A few joggers and early walkers paused, sensing tension in the air. Harold's heart pounded. Something was terribly off. The officers weren't here to help. They were here with a mission. And for the first time that morning, Harold feared the dog might be the only one who knew why. The air in the park thickened with tension, the kind that made even the birds fall silent. Harold felt the German shepherd's body tighten against his legs, every muscle vibrating with restrained instinct. The officers continued their slow advance, their boots pressing into the grass with the weight of authority and something else Harold couldn't quite name. Fear, anger, urgency. Whatever it wasn't simple retrieval. The lead officer raised his hand, signaling the others to halt. "Last warning," he said coldly. "Step away from the animal." Harold felt a sting of indignation. "Son, I told you he's not hurt anyone. You don't need to talk to me like that." The officer's jaw clenched. This dog attacked a suspect during a raid. He's classified as. The officer's jaw clenched. This dog attacked a suspect during a raid. He's classified as unstable and disobedient. We cannot allow him to stay with a civilian. Move now. The word unstable hit Harold like a stone. He looked at the dog, calm, loyal, protective. The shepherd pressed its face gently against Harold's hand, as if begging him not to move. Something wasn't right. The dog didn't feel dangerous. He felt afraid. Before Harold could speak again, the lead officer stepped back, signaling his own K-9 handler, the third officer standing behind him. That handler gave a short, sharp nod. The lead officer's voice boomed across the park. "K-9, take him down." Harold froze. The world around him seemed to stop moving. A jogger tripped over her own feet. A mother pulled her child behind her. Someone gasped loudly from the path. "Take me down," Harold whispered, disbelief hollowing his voice. The German shepherd jerked, startled by the command. He looked in the direction the officer pointed, straight at the old man. Confusion flickered in his eyes. He took one step forward, then two, head low, ears twitching as if torn between obedience and something deeper. Harold forced himself to speak, though fear tightened his throat. "Boy, no. You don't have to listen to them. You're safe here." The dog trembled. The officers watched with cold anticipation. Harold slowly lifted his hands, palms open, trying to show he wasn't a threat. "Easy now. No one's going to hurt you." The shepherd took another step forward, but then suddenly stopped. His breath grew sharp. His paws dug into the grass. His eyes darted between Harold and the officers. Then a memory flickered. Something in Harold's expression, something in the tone of his voice, something familiar. The dog whimpered softly, almost mournfully. The officers grew impatient. "Take him down!" the lead officer barked again, fury rising in his voice. The shepherd flinched, but he didn't move. Harold held his breath. The dog lifted his head, stared directly into the old man's eyes, and in that moment, something changed, something no one expected. The dog made a choice, and it was not the one he had been trained for. The moment the officer barked the command again, the German shepherd's body reacted out of instinct, years of training igniting like a spark struck against dry tinder. His muscles coiled, paws digging into the earth, and with a sudden burst of speed, he lunged forward. Gasps echoed across the park. Harold shut his eyes, bracing for the impact he believed was moments away. The officers watched in grim satisfaction. This was what they expected. This was what they wanted. The powerful dog sprinted toward Harold, closing the distance in mere seconds. But just as the shepherd reached the old man, just as everyone anticipated violence, he skidded violently to a halt, claws tearing up grass, his body twisting as if fighting an invisible force. A shocked silence swallowed the park. The dog's face hovered inches from Harold's chest, breath trembling, eyes wild with confusion. His jaws were clenched, but not open to bite. His ears flicked back and forth, torn between what he had been ordered to do and what something deep inside him refused to allow. Harold slowly opened his eyes. The dog's head was bowed, trembling, not with aggression, but with conflict. "Easy, boy," Harold whispered, barely audible. The shepherd let out a pained whine, the kind of sound that spoke of memories clawing their way to the surface. His gaze flicked upward, studying Harold's lined face. Something in the old man's expression, his scent, the gentle steadiness in his voice, it triggered recognition buried beneath trauma and training. Behind them, the officers exchanged confused glances. "What's he doing?" one muttered. "He's supposed to take the target down." Another hissed. The lead officer's face reddened with anger. "He's refusing to obey. This is exactly why he's classified unstable." But Harold saw something the others didn't. The dog wasn't unstable. He was remembering. The shepherd stepped back, lowering his head, almost apologizing for his hesitation. Then, in a slow, deliberate movement, he circled Harold, not to attack, but to protect. His body formed a shield between the old man and the officers. The park erupted in murmurs. "He's defending him." "What's happening?" "That dog knows that man." The lead officer took a frustrated step forward, but the shepherd growled, a deep warning growl that sent a shiver through the grass and the men who heard it. Harold placed a hand on the dog's back. "It's okay, boy," he murmured. "You don't have to fight anymore." The dog pressed into Harold's side, choosing him. And in that single moment, everything changed. For a moment, the world around the German shepherd blurred. The officers, the park, even Harold's trembling hand on his back. A sharp pulse of memory surged through him, hitting with the force of a thunderclap. His ears flattened, his breath hitched, and then the flashback began, not in words, but in sensations. The smell of burning sand, the thunder of explosions shaking the ground, men shouting orders in voices thick with fear and determination. The shepherd, then known by another name, ran across a barren landscape littered with debris and smoke. His vest was heavier back then, strapped with equipment, sensors, and tags that marked him as an elite military canine. He remembered sprinting beside armored vehicles, weaving through chaos with unwavering focus. He remembered the voice he trusted more than any command. "Stay close, buddy. I've got you." A younger, stronger man, broad-shouldered, sunburned, wearing dusty fatigues, ran beside him. His name wasn't Harold, but he carried the same steady warmth in his voice, the same calm authority that cut through fear like a knife through rope. The shepherd remembered the man's scent. Salt, sweat, gunpowder, safety. They worked as one, searching for explosives, locating wounded soldiers, warning the team of hidden dangers. The man often knelt, rubbing behind the dog's ears, whispering, "You're my best soldier. Don't ever forget that." Then came the mission. Nighttime, pitch black, except for streaks of fire exploding across the horizon. The dog sensed danger before the others did. An electrical whine beneath the sand, a vibration no human could detect. He barked, urgent and sharp. The man reacted instantly. "Fall back." "There's something." The explosion swallowed his voice. Sand erupted into the sky. Metal fragments tore through the air. The dog flew backward, hitting the ground hard, pain shooting through his body. His ears rang with a high-pitched scream he couldn't silence. Through the haze, he saw his partner lying motionless, half buried under debris. He crawled toward him, whimpering, desperate. He nudged a man's shoulder, barked, dragged at his vest with trembling teeth. No response. Soldiers rushed in, pulling the dog away. "Get him out of here. The handler's down." The shepherd fought, twisting violently, refusing to abandon the only human he had ever loved. But he was yanked back, carried to safety, drugged, restrained, separated. Everything after that faded into a blur of cages, retraining, strange voices, and new commands that felt hollow, without the one voice he longed to hear. The flashback snapped, and the shepherd found himself back in the park, chest heaving, eyes locked onto Harold. The old man wasn't the same person from his memories, but something in his voice, something in his scent, something in his tired eyes felt painfully familiar, like a ghost of his partner lived inside the stranger. Harold gently cupped the dog's face. "You okay, boy?" he whispered. The dog pressed into his palm. He remembered, maybe not everything, but enough to know one thing. He would not let this man be harmed. The German shepherd shook off the fragments of memory, clinging to his mind like smoke from an old battlefield. His breath steadied, his heartbeat slowed, and his eyes, once clouded with confusion, now burned with clarity. He stepped closer to Harold, positioning himself between the old man and the officers, as if drawing an invisible line in the grass. A low, steady growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Harold blinked, startled by the dog's sudden shift. "Easy, boy. What's gotten into you?" But the shepherd wasn't acting out of fear. He was acting out of recognition, out of something buried but powerful: loyalty, memory, instinct. The lead officer took a step forward, hand tightening around his baton. "That's enough. Stand down and move away from the animal." The dog's growl deepened. Harold raised a shaking hand. "He's not hurting anyone. Let me talk to him. Just give me a moment." But the officer ignored him. "This canine is property of the department. He obeys me, not you." The shepherd snapped his head toward the officer, baring his teeth, not in wild aggression, but in a deliberate warning. He lowered his body, muscles coiled, ready to defend. A small crowd had begun gathering. People whispered anxiously. Why is the dog protecting the old man? Did they know each other? What's going on? The officer's frustration grew. "Last chance. Move or I'll force compliance." He started forward. The German shepherd responded instantly, not by attacking, but by shifting his stance. He planted himself firmly in front of Harold, chest out, head low, ears pinned forward in a soldier's posture. It wasn't random. It was tactical, trained, purposeful. Harold's eyes softened with realization. "You're protecting me, aren't you?" The dog pressed aside against Harold's leg, grounding himself as if drawing strength from the old man's presence. His eyes stayed locked on the officer's, fearless and unwavering. The younger officer swallowed hard. "Sir, that's not normal behavior. He's choosing the wrong person." But Harold shook his head slowly, his voice barely a whisper. "No, he's choosing the right one." For a moment, no one moved. The park fell into an eerie stillness, where the only sound was the shepherd's steady, determined breathing. Then he took another step forward, blocking Harold completely, making it clear to everyone watching. The dog had made his choice, and he was willing to stand against anyone, even those who once commanded him, to protect the man destiny had placed in front of him. The lead officer's face twisted in disbelief as the German shepherd stood firm in front of Harold, refusing to budge. His jaw clenched so tightly that the muscles in his neck trembled. This wasn't just disobedience. This was defiance. "What is wrong with this dog?" he snapped, taking another step forward. The shepherd's growl deepened, a low warning vibrating through the ground. His posture was unwavering, confident, almost military, nothing like the unstable animal the officers had described. The younger officer leaned toward the lead. "Sir, I've never seen AK." 9 refused a direct takedown order. "Something's off." "Off?" the lead officer barked. "He's malfunctioning. That old man has somehow influenced him." Harold lifted his hands defensively. "Influenced him? Son, all I did was give him a place to rest. He came to me." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The third officer, the K-9 handler, stepped forward cautiously, try and summon control. K-9, stand down, he commanded. The shepherd didn't even flick an ear. The handler's brows furrowed. That's not possible. The lead officer's patience snapped. Fine. If he won't obey, we'll retrieve him by force. He signaled the two officers to spread out, approaching Harold from both sides. The crowd watching grew tense, several pulling out phones to record. The shepherd reacted instantly. He shifted, positioning himself to face all three officers at once. Head lowered, legs braced, eyes sharp. He wasn't attacking, but he was prepared. Every inch of his posture screamed warning. Come closer, and you'll regret it. This is insane, one officer whispered. He's protecting him like he's his handler. Harold swallowed hard. I ain't his handler. I don't know what he wants from me, but he's scared of you boys. That ought to tell you something. The lead officer ignored him. Fury burned his eyes. I'm done negotiating. Step aside, old man. Now. Harold didn't move. Neither did the dog. The wind rustled leaves overhead, carrying a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The tension had shifted. What was moments ago a simple retrieval now felt like the start of something much darker. The lead officer raised his baton. The shepherd's lips curled back, revealing sharp teeth. The message was clear. If they crossed a line, he would defend Harold with everything he had. The baton hovered in the air, inches from becoming violence. Harold stared at it, not with fear, but with the quiet disappointment of a man who had seen far too much in his lifetime. The German shepherd's growl deepened, vibrating like a warning shot through the grass. Sir, don't do this, Harold said softly. The lead officer scoffed. And why not? Because this dog ain't attacking anyone, Harold replied, his voice steady despite the chaos building around them. He's protecting, and trained dogs don't protect without a reason. The younger officer hesitated. Sir, maybe we should hear him out. But the lead officer snapped. He's a civilian. He knows nothing about K-9 protocol. Harold sighed, removing his cap with trembling fingers. Beneath it, a faded scar curved across his temple. Old, deep, unmistakably earned in battle. The crowd murmured as he lowered the cap into his lap. You boys see an old man, Harold began. But once upon a time, I wasn't just some retiree feeding ducks in a park. The officers exchanged puzzled glances. The German shepherd shifted, looking up at Harold with alert, searching eyes. I served 22 years in the military, Harold continued quietly. I was part of a specialized K-9 unit overseas. I trained dogs to detect explosives, to track wounded soldiers, to protect lives at the cost of their own. Silence rippled through the park. The third officer, the K-9 handler, blinked, taken aback. You were a handler? Harold nodded. A long time ago, before the world took more from me than I had left to give. The shepherd's growl softened, his ears lifted, his head tilted, studying Harold with something deeper than curiosity. Recognition, maybe a connection forming between memories lost and a voice remembered. Harold continued, voice thickening with emotion. I don't know why this dog came to me. Maybe he saw something familiar. Maybe he smelled the past, still clinging to me like dust. He placed a hand gently on the shepherd's back. But he ain't unstable. He's scared. A dog only chooses to defend someone when he sees him as safe or as his own. The lead officer shook his head stubbornly. That doesn't mean he belongs to you. No, Harold agreed, but it does mean something's wrong. Dogs like this don't act out of confusion. They act out of instinct loyalty. He met the officer's eyes. And loyalty only breaks when something breaks it first. The shepherd stepped closer, touching his muzzle to Harold's hand. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. And everyone watching felt the shift. This wasn't just a dog choosing a stranger. This was a soldier recognizing a soldier. The crowd fell into a hush, the officers momentarily frozen by Harold's revelation. The German shepherd remained pressed against the old man's leg, torn between instinct and a past he couldn't fully remember but couldn't forget either. Harold slowly straightened his back, the weight of years lifting just slightly. Boys, he said quietly, there are things you learn in a military K-9 unit that don't fade with time, commands, gestures, codes that only one team shares. The K-9 handler frowned. What are you saying? Harold took a slow breath. I'm saying, let's see whether this dog's memory is really as broken as you claim. The lead officer rolled his eyes. This is unnecessary. But the handler raised a hand. Wait, let him try. Harold knelt carefully beside the shepherd, his knees cracking with age. The dog watched him, ears perked, breath trembling with anticipation. Harold lifted a single finger, making a tiny circular motion so small the crowd barely noticed it. The shepherd froze. Then his posture shifted, muscles aligning with precision. His tail lowered, his shoulders squared, his gaze sharpened like a blade being drawn. The transformation was unmistakable. The K-9 handler's jaw dropped. That's a classified signal. Only advanced units know that. Harold wasn't finished. He tapped his chest twice, then pointed to the ground beside him. Guard, he whispered in a tone so soft the officers barely heard it. The shepherd reacted instantly. He pivoted, planting himself at Harold's side in a perfect defensive stance. Front leg stiff, hind legs braced, head down, eyes locked on threats from every angle. It wasn't a pet's behavior. It was a response of a trained soldier. The crowd gasped. People filming pulled their phones closer. The officers exchanged stunned looks. The lead officer sputtered, "That doesn't prove anything." But he didn't get to finish. Harold raised his hand again, 2 fingers extended this time. He flicked them sharply upward. The shepherd's ears snapped forward. He barked once, loud, sharp, commanding, not at Harold, not at the crowd, at the officers. It wasn't aggression. It was accusation. Harold stared at them, voice low and firm. He knows something's wrong. He's warning me about you. The lead officer's face drained of color. The younger officers exchanged uneasy glances, because the dog wasn't just remembering commands. He was remembering danger. Harold placed a gentle hand on the shepherd's neck. You remember more than they think, don't you, boy? The dog nudged his hand, eyes gleaming with painful recognition. For the first time, it was clear he wasn't malfunctioning. He wasn't confused. He was trying to tell them something the officers did not want exposed. The officers shifted uneasily as the German shepherd stayed rooted beside Harold, responding only to the old man's subtle military signals. Signals no civilian should know, and certainly no unstable K-9 should perform with such flawless precision. Harold kept one steady hand on the dog's back as he slowly rose to his feet. The air felt heavier now, thick with questions the officers couldn't answer, and truths Harold had tried to bury decades ago. You boys want the truth? Harold said softly, Fine. You deserve to know why this dog won't leave my side. The lead officer scoffed, though his voice wavered. What truth? You're a civilian. You don't know this animal. Harold's eyes hardened. I know more than you think. He took a breath, slow, painful, as if pulling memories from a place he'd locked away for years. 31 years ago, Harold began, I was deployed overseas, part of a classified K-9 task force. Our dogs weren't just for searching or patrolling. They were trained for high-risk intelligence missions, covert operations, things most people never hear about. The younger officers swallowed. Military K-9 Black Ops Division? Harold nodded. Only a handful existed, and every handler was paired with one dog, one partner, one soldier. The shepherd's ears perked, eyes locked on Harold, breath trembling with anticipation. My partner, Harold continued, was a German shepherd named Ranger, smartest, bravest dog I ever knew. Saved dozens of lives. Saved mine more times than I can count. The crowd leaned in. Even the officers stood still. Harold's voice cracked. On our last mission, we were hit by an IED. Everything went dark. When I woke up, Ranger was gone. They told me he'd been reassigned, that he couldn't work with an injured handler. He looked down, eyes glistening. I never believed them, and it broke me. The shepherd lifted his paw, placing it gently against Harold's knee. Harold swallowed hard. When this dog showed up 3 days ago, limping, scared, searching, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Something familiar. The lead officer stiffened. You think this dog is your old partner? That's impossible. Ranger would be too old. No, Harold whispered. "Look at him." He gently lifted the dog's right ear. A scar ran across the base. Clean, straight, surgical. The K-9 handler gasped. "That's a military tracking scar. Old model, old program." "And there's more," Harold said, voice trembling. "Ranger had a microfracture in his front paw from a blast left side." The shepherd extended his paw automatically when Harold tapped twice, revealing an old heel fracture. Silence fell like a hammer. The younger officer whispered, "Sir, there's no way this is coincidence." Harold nodded, tears gathering. "I thought Ranger died that day, but he didn't. They just took him, reassigned him, broke the bond only death should have broken." The shepherd stepped closer, pressing his head into Harold's chest. And in that moment, the truth shattered. They weren't strangers. They were partners reunited. The revelation struck the officers like a bolt of lightning. The younger two stepped back, shaken by the truth unfolding before them. But the lead officer, Officer Briggs, didn't move. His jaw tightened. His eyes darted from Harold to the German shepherd, then quickly away, as if the pieces falling into place were pieces he did not want exposed. Harold noticed it instantly. So did the dog. The shepherd's growl began to rise again, not confused this time, but certain. Every hair along his spine lifted. His eyes narrowed directly at Briggs, not the other officers, not the crowd, one man, Briggs. The crowd murmured, sensing tension shift toward a new target. The K-9 handler looked at his superior nervously. "Sir, you okay?" Briggs forced a rigid smile. "I'm fine. This old man is delusional. And this dog is dangerous. He needs to be contained before someone gets hurt." Ranger took a step forward, positioning himself squarely between Harold and Briggs. His growl grew deeper, more focused, different from before. Harold frowned. "He's not protecting me from all of you, just him." Briggs's expression cracked for half a second. The younger officer glanced between them. "Sir, he's zeroing in on you. K-9s don't do that unless what?" Briggs barked. "Unless the dog is malfunctioning." He disobeyed the takedown order and attacked during a raid. He's defective. But Harold shook his head. "No, he's reacting to something he recognizes." Ranger's bark exploded to the park, sharp, accusatory, echoing off the trees. The K-9 handler stiffened. "Sir, dogs trained in narcotics and explosives only react like that when they detect foreign substances or stress markers or what?" Briggs snapped. "Are you calling me guilty of something?" The handler hesitated. "Sir, I'm saying the dog senses something. Dogs don't lie." Briggs stepped backward, only inches, but enough to betray fear. His hand hovered near his jacket pocket, not his holster. Harold's eyes sharpened. "What are you hiding, son?" Briggs didn't answer. Ranger advanced another step. For bristling, gaze locked onto that pocket. His bark intensified, no longer warning, exposing. The younger officer suddenly understood. "Sir, open your jacket." Briggs's face drained of color, and for the first time, everyone realized the dog wasn't unstable. He wasn't disobedient. He was pointing to the real threat, and it wasn't Harold. It was the man giving the orders. All eyes locked on Officer Briggs. The tension in the park thickened, pressing down like a storm ready to break. Ranger, once a nameless, wandering dog, now stood tall, unflinching, every muscle focused on the man trying hardest to appear calm. "Sir, open your jacket." The younger officer repeated, voice trembling with suspicion. Briggs didn't move. Ranger barked again, loud, sharp, unmistakably authoritative. It wasn't aggression. It was a command, a demand for truth. Briggs flinched. The K-9 handler stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, with all due respect, if you got something in that jacket, we need to know. This dog wasn't reacting to the old man. He's reacting to you." Briggs's breath hitched for a fraction of a second. His eyes flicked toward the crowd, then the cameras recording him. Panic flashed behind his forced composure. "Fine," he muttered. "You want to see? Then look." He slowly opened his jacket. Gasps erupted. Inside, tucked into the inner pocket, were several small bags of confiscated narcotics, drugs that should have been in the evidence locker. The younger officers recoiled. The handler's face twisted in disbelief. Sir, these were taken during the raid last week. Why do you have them? I was transporting evidence. Briggs snapped, but the handler cut him off. No, evidence is transported in sealed containers, logged, signed. This is smuggling. Ranger growled again, confirming the truth without hesitation. Harold's eyes narrowed. So that's why you wanted him gone, he murmured. The raid incident, the unstable report. You tried to silence the only witness who saw what you did. Briggs's face twisted with anger. You don't know anything. Oh, but he does, Harold said, nodding toward Ranger. Dogs don't forget what they smell, and they sure don't forget betrayal. The handler stepped closer, shoulders squared. Sir, did you alter the K-9 report? Did you claim Ranger attacked to justify putting him down? Briggs froze. The silence was the answer. Ranger barked, sharp and condemning. The younger officer said, voice trembling with hurt, Sir, were you planning to sell the confiscated drugs? Is that why you tried to eliminate the dog? Briggs backed away, panic breaking through his mask. Stay back. But Ranger moved first, not to attack, but to block Briggs's escape. The shepherd stood firm, towering, fearless, refusing to let the corrupt officer flee. The crowd gasped as Briggs stumbled, tripping over the bench behind him. The handler spoke softly, heartbreak in his voice. He wasn't the dangerous one, sir. You were. Ranger's eyes stayed locked on Briggs. Justice wasn't just being served. It was being exposed by the very dog Briggs tried to destroy. The park buzzed with shock as Ranger held his ground, blocking Officer Briggs from taking a single step. The younger officers finally snapped from their disbelief and reached for their radios, calling for backup and internal affairs. Briggs's career and freedom were unraveling right before his eyes. But in the middle of the chaos, Harold's breathing began to change. At first, it was subtle, an extra tremor in his exhale, a slight shake in his hands as he steadied himself against the bench. But then the color drained from his face. His grip tightened on Ranger's fur, not for reassurance, but for balance. Easy, easy now, Harold whispered, though his voice wavered, thin and strained. Ranger instantly turned away from Briggs, instinct shifting from defense to alarm. He nudged Harold's arm frantically, whining, sensing something far more dangerous than a corrupt officer. The younger officer noticed first. Sir, you okay? Harold forced a weak smile. Guess all the excitement's a little much for these old bones. But his legs buckled before he finished speaking. Ranger barked sharply, an urgent panic cry, as Harold collapsed.